So welcome to our CEO Change of Mind Q&A sessions. This afternoon we're going to look at the area of architecture, and I'm joined by Laura Egan O'Brien, who's the Marketing Manager for the College of Engineering and Architecture, and then Martina, who is a first year student who's just finished her first year studying architecture. So thanks very much for joining us. Laura, we might start with you. Could you maybe explain what kind of subjects and what would students be interested in if they're thinking about going into an architecture course?
Yeah, so we find that students are interested in kind of coming from a lot of different backgrounds. There's not kind of one typical architecture student, but essentially students who are creative minded, who enjoy making things, who are maybe even artistically gifted, maybe technically minded also, interested in social issues, excited by the prospect of maybe designing buildings, urban environments, landscapes. They're the kind of students that we're looking for, and the students that would make really, really good architects at the end of the day. Also, subject-wise from the Leaving Cert, students are always asking us, so you need English, Irish, maths, third language. There are no particular level for those once you're getting your points requirement. And we get students then ask us, well, I'm not doing art or tech graphics. And we say, that's fine as well. If you're doing them, obviously you might have a bit of a leg up in first year. You might be already acquiring the kind of skills that you need as an architect, but you don't need to have them before you come in. We also don't require a portfolio, which is different than some other universities. And the reason we don't ask for these subjects or a portfolio is because the degree in UCD is professionally kind of minded. Everything you need to know and all the skills you require to work as a professional architect, you'll learn once you come into the course. So you don't have to prove that before you come in. Obviously, an interest is important, but we're not going to ask you to prove any of that kind of thing.
Exactly. And in terms of what students can actually take and what they'll be putting down on their CEO application, could you give us an overview of the different courses?
Yeah, so the architecture programme belongs to our School of Architecture, Planning and Environmental Policy. So within that school, they offer 3 different undergraduate programmes. One of them is architecture, so students who are interested in that will put down DN 100. DN 100. We also offer landscape architecture, and that's DN 120. And then our third one is, the newest one is city planning and environmental policy, and that's DN 130. So there are 3 courses that we offer, all have various different types of students that kind of like to do them. They're all quite similar, all around the built environment, social issues, and the environment. So yeah, they're the 3 ones that we offer.
And Martina, you decided to do architecture. Do you maybe want to explain why you picked the subject and what it's like to study?
I picked this subject because I had that creative mind to it, but I didn't want to go into an arts degree, doing graphic design or anything like that. I like that the kind of the technical behind it, how you have to plan and then design, or design then plan kind of thing. So that's kind of why I chose it. It wasn't the only kind of choice I had. I had engineering and all that kind of stuff as well. But I felt like architecture was a bit more to my artistic side. And what was the other question you said there?
And what's it kind of like studying the subject since you've got into it?
Oh, it's very, I suppose, it's very artistic. You have to plan and then think like an architect, have to think, does it work, does it not work? So you don't just design an abstract thing and then all of a sudden you have to apply it to a real life situation, and then it fails. You have to actually put the maths to it, not like calculator maths, but the maths to if it's going to work or not. So you do have to think a little bit like an engineer sometimes.
And in terms of the practical element of the course, it's a really big element of it. Could you maybe explain what it's like working out in the studios and maybe some of the facilities that are out in Richview?
Yeah, so we have a studio for each year group. We have your own desk. You get your own, then your table, your board, and then it's basically all just to you, your own little small desk. You're in your groups of say 12, or according to the number of the people in the year. For me it was 12, and then you would break down each element or each kind of semester into say 5 projects. One of those projects was making a table. So you had to make your own kind of design for that particular table, but you had to kind of design it abstractly in a way, so not just a regular 4-leg table or anything like that. Afterwards they would choose one of them of your own group, and that they felt was different, or they felt that was new or just great in a certain aspect. Afterwards you would pick from another group. You as a person, you would pick from the other group what you would like, and then you voted. You picked that one, the chosen one, and then you would make it yourself. So then in the workshop, we have a workshop with like high-tech technology of how to make like woodwork stuff and all that, or metalwork. And then you would make your table then. That's just one of them.
Perfect. And what's the balance like between the kind of theory part of it and the practical side of it?
So it is mostly practical, and then the theory there is, so for me I had 4 modules altogether. One of them was the practical one, and then 3 other ones was about like the environment, how to be like kind of conscious of the environment. Another one was how to build a design or a building that was like adjustable for the occupants, so if it was accessible or not, or if it was sufficient, I suppose, for the people or the purpose that it was made to be. And then the third one was the history, so you kind of have to learn about the history of the architecture. So if you did art in Leaving Cert, it kind of came back to that all the time, because you did art in Leaving Cert, you would have done the history as well, but this was just more in depth.
Perfect. And Laura, you mentioned that there's kind of 3 main areas within the architecture school.
Yeah.
For students who are sitting at home, could you maybe explain kind of what the different aspects of them are?
Yeah, so what I would say for architecture, just expanding on what Martina said, yeah, it's broken down into 2 kind of different areas. So you have your lecture aspect and your design aspect. The design aspect is where it really kind of comes into its own. You're spending a lot of time in studio. It's quite an intensive degree. And the design aspect is broken down into studio work, into field trips, into kind of group tutorials, individual tuition. You'll have exhibitions, large review. It's really all about group work, collaboration, and learning from your fellow students as well, I think is very important. And yeah, you'll do a bit of history and theory of design. You'll do something about environmental science, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's just very intense. Where if you're looking at the likes of landscape architecture, it's very similar to architecture in the sense that it's very design focused, very studio based, but you're teaching students how to design around nature, how to improve quality of lives, how to improve the environment aspects when you're designing, and then you're also looking at kind of projects that landscape architects tend to work on when they go out into the world are designing habitats for humans, non-humans alike. You're looking at maybe homes for city birds, you're looking at city parks, playgrounds for children, you could be designing cityscapes, nature reserves, that kind of thing. So landscape architecture is also a really, really up and coming area in Ireland. It's starting to expand and grow, so it's a great time to start getting into landscape architecture, and UCD is the only university in Ireland that offers landscape architecture as well. So what I would say to students who are maybe wrestling between architecture and landscape architecture, if you like the design aspects of architecture, but you also have an interest in nature, the outdoors, and you maybe don't have that third language, because we have a third language requirement for architecture, we're not for landscape architecture. And also something to be considerate of is architecture, because of its popularity, the points can be quite high, where landscape architecture, because it's only growing, the points are still a little bit lower at the moment. So I would put down one or the other or both on the CEO, and kind of see where your interest lies. And then the third one, as we mentioned, is city planning environmental policy. So again, it's within that built environment kind of space, but you're looking at more on how humans impact the environment as well, and how we impact it, and also maybe looking at issues that we take for granted on a daily basis, like where we put our schools, where we put our hospitals, and maybe how to preserve our cultural heritage, policy making and things like that. And the planning department we have here is one of the oldest in the country. Most of the planners in Ireland were educated here in UCD too. And also, if you're looking for a career in either as a professional city planner, urban designer, or environmental policy analyst, city planning environmental policy is kind of the degree that I think would suit most people.
And in terms of kind of the career opportunities after these courses, where are we seeing that graduates are going afterwards?
Yeah, so for architecture, we're seeing graduates mostly going to architectural practice, because it is a professionally kind of graded level degree. So most of them will go into practice, but it is producing a lot of transferable skills that students also get from the degree. So they're also going into areas like they're going into planning, they're going into landscape architecture, they're going into graphic design or photography, heritage site management, curatorial work, that kind of thing. Landscape architects, again, it's a professional qualified degree, so you're going to work as a landscape architect, maybe in an architectural firm, maybe in a county council, public sector, that kind of thing. You're working for governmental bodies, NGOs, that kind of thing. And then for city planners, again, as I said, you're looking as a career as a professional planner, urban designer, or policy analyst for the environment.
Perfect. And Martina, you've just finished first year, and first year for an awful lot of students can be kind of a daunting experience. Can you maybe explain what it was like as a first year student coming to UCD and settling in?
So because I suppose Richview, like the campus, it's a little bit further away from the main campus. So at the start it was a bit like it was daunting trying to get away or around the campus, getting to meet new people and stuff like that. But there's an architecture, there's a social kind of society club, so they make you really welcome into the architecture building. They show you around everywhere, and then when you're in the course, when you're into it, like first semester and all that, you get used to it. Like I still had like my own kind of outdoor life, my own social life, so it is I suppose in-depth kind of thing, and you're always in the studio most of the time, especially in the evenings, but you do make time for your own activities or your own whatever you kind of like, and then because it's a small kind of a group, like you're only about 50 or 60 people, you do get to know each other much more in-depthly as well, rather than like most other courses it would be a very big group. We were very small, so like we kind of helped each other out. If there was any issues, you had someone there to help you. Because I suppose I was young, I was only 17 in first year, so it was kind of a bit annoying sometimes because most people, they were like older and like they kind of go out or whatever, and I was just there sitting down, trying to get my stuff done. But no, it was like fine, and the exams, they would portfolio week is a bit really hard. Like you're in the studio like 12 hours a day, maybe more even, just trying to get your things done. Then the exams, there's only about a couple or 2 exams, 1 or 2, which is fine, it's great. Then you get a kind of a longer break. Then semester 2, it's a bit more, you have one kind of project, one main project, and then you kind of get a real life experience of how to actually be an architect, or what involves an architect kind of from the beginning to the end of a complete project. So the first semester is like small projects, like I was saying, and then in semester 2 is like one big gigantic project, and just much more practical, definitely better than I suppose first semester. Completely different to say 6th year even, or leaving cert. It's like you're all going down to one exam, but this one is split up into 2 kind of sectors, and then or like 2 semesters, and then added up at the end, which is really, really good and really handy.
And you made that kind of good point that it is really practical based. You're doing an awful lot of continuous assessment as you're going along. Could you maybe explain some of the different projects that you worked on?
So one of them was when you're first in, they kind of ask you to make an abstract, I suppose, model of a memory, any kind of memory you had, whether it being good, bad, in a different country or not, and then you make it out of any material you want. Afterwards, we were in one room, and we all kind of we took each different designs, we explained them what they were, and then you kind of got a good indication of how other people thought, or how they would abstract a certain memory into something very, very different, and then from that you would take it and then you would like adapt it into a kind of a form of a building or form of a structure, and that was outside into the quad area in front of the building. So you kind of had a visual kind of aspect of your site. You could measure the site, see how many trees say there were, and then you would build that kind of structure from your memory, or from your memory memo, and then it was kind of like a good way from the beginning to kind of get into that building form, because you had a limited amount of material, you had a limited amount of like a budget or whatever. You didn't build it obviously, but it was kind of just a good way to from the beginning get to that. And then by the end of like say November or whatever, we went to Florence, so that was one of our field trips that we went to, and over there they kind of encouraged you to sketch. So whether you did or you did not have art as your subject in Leaving Cert, you were encouraged to sketch. You had your own sketchbook. They gave you criteria, they gave you examples, and showed you how other years or how other people would draw or sketch in their sketchbook. So you had a good idea how to kind of form your own style in it. It was really, really good. And then obviously in Florence, it was like 3 days and you had to go around, see the different architectural history buildings. So obviously it inspired you, and then when you came back, you made your own model of an interpretation of a certain, say, geometry or the vista, so like how you go into the building, or the landscape behind it or beside it. So it was definitely really good, very, very different kind of projects all around to get a different feel of what you liked or what you kind of preferred. So like I was saying, say the table one, if you're into like furniture design, they kind of encourage you that when you're in architecture, you don't just have to be an architect. You can always go into certain aspects of interior design or whatever. So they kind of encourage different kind of aspects of designing in general to help you kind of find your own kind of comfort zone, I suppose.
And for 6-year students who are sitting at home and they're interested in design and maybe thinking about going down the architecture route, what advice would you give to them?
I would give, I suppose, that even if you're not 100% sure that you like it, but you're interested in designing and the buildings, I would definitely put it down as on my CAO somewhere there. So for me, it wasn't my first choice, but it was definitely like the choice that I did want. I just didn't feel like I actually really liked it as much as I did. At the beginning, I kind of felt confused. I was like, oh my god, I'm much more of a science person than an art person. But you don't have to just be an artist person. You can put in science into it. You can, like, architecture is very broad because you don't have to just build a house or build a school or anything. Like, you can just build a structure or even just design furniture, say, whatever. But for those kind of, I suppose, sitting there, they don't know what to do, I would just read up onto it, the course, kind of what you do into it. I would definitely make sure that you like designing in general, just no matter what it is, just you like designing or you like being creative in general. It's really, really good for kind of getting that creativity inside you out, I suppose. So I would definitely put it down somewhere.
And Laura, in terms of the other courses, so say landscape architecture, city planning, what advice would you give to students who are maybe unsure if it's the right fit for them?
Yes, what I would say is just make sure that it's a good fit for what you're looking for, that you're really passionate about it, because they are very intensive degrees, particularly for architecture and landscape architecture. It's a lot of time spent in studio. It's not for the faint-hearted. You're going to be spending long days. It's just to make sure it's something that you really enjoy. The design aspect is a huge part of both degrees for landscape and architecture. To make sure, that you have an interest in design. You don't have to have all the skills right away. I wouldn't worry about that if you're a bit rusty or you think you're not the best. You'll pick up those skills and they'll teach you how to hand draw, how to model make, how different materials work. They'll teach you all of that when you come in. We have a dedicated design and building space for our architects and landscape architects, and they have technicians there that will help you with all those kind of things. For planning, they're really small class sizes. They're quite interactive learning environments. So once you come into those kind of courses, you'll learn really, really quickly. You'll get to know your class groups really, really quickly. It's the same for all 3 of our undergraduate programs. They're small class sizes, which I think is a really, really great environment to learn in. But just, do the research, look in the prospectus, tune in today, reach out to us on the CAO helpline if you need any more questions answered before making your decision. But you can't really go wrong with any of these degrees once you have an interest in design, built environment, the environment, if you want nature, the outdoors, all those kind of things are really, really good aspects. What I would say is some of our unique aspects to our degrees, the likes of architecture. It's the oldest architecture and most well-established architecture course in the country. It's the only course that has a triple accreditation, that being that we have accreditation from the RIAI, which is the Royal Irish Body for Irish Architects, then the RIBA, which is the British professional body, and also recently we got the substantial equivalency with the US body as well, so the NAB. And then also the architects that are going to be teaching you, for the majority, most of them are practicing architects, and some of them are leaders in their field as well. So the likes of Yvonne and Shelley from Grafton Architects, they curated the 2018 Venice Biennale last year, which is the world's largest architectural exhibition, which is, they're teaching you in your course, which is really, really good. The same for landscape architecture. Most of the architects there and landscape architects there do work as professional landscape architects, so it's really great to get in there. And also then with planning, it's the oldest planning department, and again most of the planners in Ireland have been educated there, so there's a standard of teaching that you'll get is really, really strong.
Perfect. I think that's a kind of perfect point to end on. So I'd like to thank Laura and Martina for joining us today and answering all the questions. And thanks very much for tuning in. And don't forget that the CEO Change of Mind helpline here in UCD is open until next Monday. So if you do have any questions about studying architecture or any of the different subjects that we offer here in UCD, make sure to get in touch either through the phone line or through my UCD and our social media accounts, and we can answer your questions over the next couple of days. So thanks very much for tuning in.